My name is Eric Johnson Jr. For those who haven't seen this before, this is our podcast that we've been trying out in the driver's lounge with Eric Jr. I'm joined today by Zack Jankelson, who was the creator of Z93 Media, a recent creation in the last year or two that has been a special project of his, and one that I've been definitely drawn to just through all the work that we've already collaborated doing together. He's brought a lot of our content to the screen that you guys have probably already viewed through our YouTube videos and small, short social media clips and things of that sort. So big thank you to Zack right off the get-go. But Zack, first of all, thank you, obviously, for being here and giving me
Thanks
your
for
time.
having me.
So briefly, obviously, I know you and we've had plenty of conversations. I did this with Logan, who was just on. But can you please give maybe an idea to people who don't know who Zack Jankelson is, maybe who you are, where you're from, a brief of how you got into this and what you're doing now in racing?
Yeah, I'm Zach. I am 31 years old from Tacoma area in Washington. I'm a real estate broker by trade and have in the last 2 years probably discovered kind of a passion for filmmaking that started very bare bones and almost by necessity kind of turned into a much bigger thing.
Yeah, it's been fun to watch. I'm a passionate person. I think most people can see it through how much I do with one thing. I mean, you might want to call it insanity as well or something else.
Yeah.
But it's cool to see people get passionate, especially people that are been around us. And you and I got to be around each other first through Max, and we'll get into that. But Max Schroeder, who a lot of people in the Northwest obviously know, he's been a big role model for me, and I'm really excited to have him on the show in the future. That's in the works, but for you and I, that's where obviously we got to meet at first. So my knowledge on Zack was very limited up until this year, and we've only had so much time to catch up, obviously, over our time working together. And a lot of it's been focused on me and my content. But that's why one of my first thoughts was, okay, Zack sat there, filmed me for all these hours. I want to get him on here, flip the camera around, and maybe have some conversation as to what goes into that. Because for me, I find it super interesting. I've been fascinated by filmmaking. Now, I don't know about you, but it's been a massive learning curve. Yeah, I mean, when you started, what were some of the things that you were doing trying to watch, or what were the places you were going to figure this out? Or is it just you were a Google samurai?
YouTube University. It's funny because it all kind of happened by accident. Um, the brief story was that through the real estate business, I sponsored Max, and had for 5 years. Now it's been about 5, 6 years. At that point, it had been about 3. And I did the standard social media posts and, graphics on Canva and whatnot. And it was at South Sound. Yeah, Canva's the best, dude.
I use it
Canva
for
rocks.
everything.
Yes, Canva rocks. And so it was 2 years ago, South Sound testing day before the season. The last time that Max ran the full schedule, and the whole family turned up. This was after the year after Racing Dynamics, and so it was back to the family crew, and so we went out there, and I figured it'd be fun to go out and see everybody again before the season started. He wasn't going to run a race at South Sound that year, so I figured, well, it's the only chance to get out there, and that's our closest track, and wound up pulling out the cinematic mode on my iPhone just to kind of capture some stuff. I found that by accident too. I just swiped. I didn't even know it was there.
How funny.
Yeah, and then through that, I just kind of started filming like a time lapse of Michael Ann and Dale putting the wrap on the car. The Burns family was there too. They were helping out, and so it was just kind of a filming the festivities of the day. And the moment that I realized this could actually be really cool, because I was filming stuff and I had Premiere Pro at the time. I had just gotten it, and because I was going to patch together some stuff for work or whatever. I don't know what I was going to do with it, but I wanted to start making videos of some kind. And the moment that I'm like, wait, this is actually really cool, was you were there as well.
Really?
You were there and you were helping out Max. I got some shots of you in the trailer, kind of pointing at stuff on the whiteboard.
Okay, yeah, I remember this now.
Yes, yes. And then I grabbed one of the headsets the first time Max went out, and I took my phone again and I opened the voice memos app and I put it up there and I got you talking to Max on the radio. And I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. Like, that sounded nice. I listened to it in my ear and then I took it back, put it in the video, and I'm like, oh, this is actually really cool.
Yeah, yeah.
And so made that video instead of, a social media post, just a graphic and a picture. And that then turned into like, okay, we're at Tri-Cities. I'm now filming everything. And I got so much footage, I wound up turning it into like a 40-minute like documentary. It
Yeah,
all
yeah.
very much kind of happened by accident. It was like I didn't really plan on making it that long or making it that kind of structure. But then it just turned into like we wound up doing 9 episodes of it, and I wound up getting really into the editing and learning about it, and learning the limits of an iPhone as a camera.
Well, yeah, that's the thing is I don't think how many people realize I've had a lot of people even in the last week as I've been trying to just put out some content. We're in a dead spot, so put out like a little shop video and I had some people
That looked
reach
great,
out.
by the way.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
It was trying something different, and I've had people reach out and ask like what camera I was using and how much did that cost and what kind of stuff. I'm like, I was telling them all like this is what I use, but like you don't realize what kind of tool you have in your pocket. Like pull the phone out and just start recording. You may not need this. And to a lot of people, I told them like this is overwhelming. Even the step up to the small camera I use, for most people that's too much. Trying to transfer files and splice video together in some editing software and playing with audio levels, like that's just
Yeah.
no thank you. So for a lot of people, a simple time lapse on your iPhone, loading the car or things like that, I've been trying to suggest because like you said, it just kind of happens, and then once you start going, the easier it gets. But I remember that day. I didn't realize that that was like the first time you played with it, but I remember the video that came out and playing with that, and yeah, that was a cool day. The thing, like you said though, putting the audio over it. So when you said it turned out to be like 40 minutes, I remember the one of the first videos I really shot. Kind of the same thing. I went down. I kind of started playing with my phone at tracks, and I was doing my own stuff on YouTube, and I realized, yeah, hey, this is kind of cool. So when we went down with Race Dynamics to Irwindale, and Herzog was driving the car,
Yeah.
I did like a same thing, like a longer little docu on the race for the All Star Showdown, and all I can remember was like sitting there looking at all my footage, and I wanted to use every clip,
Yes.
and I like that's the painful thing. I think people don't realize is
Mm-hmm.
you probably capture, I would say, 2 hours of content for every 30 minutes of video. I would like something, and like
Oh,
there's
yeah,
at least, right?
at least,
And
yes.
I mean, and that's not counting how many hours combined you have of it, like everything where it's 2 hours of audio from the race, 2 hours of GoPro footage from this angle, 2 hours of it from this angle, and when you start putting those things together, it for me, it's still hard to kind of pick and choose.
Yeah.
And every time I upload a video, I kind of look back at it and go, yeah, I wonder if it would have done better if I would have used this instead of that or
Right.
whatever. So
It's really hard not to do that, and we'll get
it's
in,
hard.
more of the specifics of it. But
Yeah.
for that first video that wound up being a series called Max Speed,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is kind of like a very Drive to Survive light, like kind of thing, bootstrapped by one guy with an iPhone, right? And I look back at those now, they're still on the YouTube channel, and I won't take them down, but I watch them now, and I'm like,
Yes.
oh, because that 40 something minute first video could have been 15 minutes.
Yes.
And when you said it's like you capture an hour of video to extract the best like minute.
Hmm.
It's funny looking back on some of those projects and being like, oh boy, like my pacing is all off, knowing what I know now, and it's all, even just from being self-taught, but seeing the improvement as you get more familiar with the software. you know.
No, and I totally agree. One thing, and this sounds, I don't know how else to put it. Just sitting here thinking about it, but it might sound a little weird. It kind of probably sounds a little narcissistic, but I think you kind of have to be a fan of your own content, because as you're making the content, it's got to be something that you feel like you'd want to watch and enjoy, right? And so like, that's the hard part is you only capture content you think you would enjoy, and then having to tell yourself, okay, now before I show anybody this, I got to decide what did I enjoy the best and how do I want to tell this story. And that's what I appreciate so much about your content is you're so good at telling a story. A lot of people out there, it's really easy, and I think people should at a minimum just capture simple video and put it out there. If you're not, and I've been saying this for years, there is so many talented people in the Northwest, and I would argue far more talented than I, or at least more accomplished, that people don't even know who they are when I go out and I try to like mention them, because they don't go out and market themselves. And that is such a huge thing. You might hear my dogs in the background. Sorry.
Yeah, it's all right.
That is like such a huge thing that I don't understand is like everybody has one of these things sitting there in pocket.
Yes.
I don't know why you don't at least put something simple out. But like I was saying with your content, what I appreciate is you tell a whole story, and you can do it in 2 minutes and you can do it in 40 minutes really well.
Yeah.
And so that's where I kind of
Appreciate that.
want to scratch your brain as we get into things is like, did you find that to be something that came naturally? Did it come from being a fan and wanting to see certain things? Or did you just, have to really go to school and this comes from,
It's weird because I don't want to sound like this isn't a braggadocious thing, but it was like a lot of that became instinct, pacing at least. And it's like a lot of these projects that we put together, especially when they're shorter, you have to be really willing to say goodbye to a shot that you put in your timeline in Premiere Pro or whatever you're editing in, and then you add a little bit afterwards. And I have a really bad habit of like I take forever to edit because I will add like 3 clips and then I will watch the whole thing. And it's the context kind of deal that matters. And I'm like, wait, okay, now that there's 2 clips after it, that doesn't feel right. And not being married to like that clip being there, being able to like, okay, undo work that you've done already because something about it ain't right. Especially when you have 2 minutes or a minute to convey whatever you're trying to convey.
for sure?
So and part of that did feel like it kind of just felt like instinct because I haven't taken any classes. You go to look up like how to do ramping speed on YouTube. Like you'll add stuff to the toolkit that way, but a lot of it was just kind of like messing around. This looks good, this doesn't. I get a suggested video in my YouTube shorts about LUTs and about lighting and shooting S-Log versus shooting RAW, yada yada yada, and you just experiment with stuff, and then sometimes you're like, oh wow, that actually looks different and noticeably better than what I was doing, and you just add that to the toolkit.
Yeah, no, and that's what I appreciate so much about your stuff is I can see the trial and error, I can see the progression, I can see it, and your video does have a very like consistent aura to it across the table, which is it's something I really like because it's very signature to your content, and I think that's important alone to build your own signature against other people and not. I'm all for standing out against the crowd. I've never been one to want to nor typically follow what everyone else is doing, and I think that's what you have to do, especially when it comes to content, because there's so much out there. And so yeah, no, I think you're right. And you're not bragging by any means when you say it just kind of naturally came, because I think that's something I pick up on when I'm watching your stuff, and I think that probably comes from realistically, at least what I would say. I can speak for myself. It comes from being a fan of the sport,
Yes.
and knowing what gets you excited, knowing what you look for, and then kind of meshing that into your content creation. And I'm guilty of it. I mean, I still struggle to let things go. Literally, the perfect example, that shop video I just did. It's like 3 minutes long. My whole goal was to make a 1-minute reel, and I wanted to tell the story of getting up, going to the shop, working on the car, calling it a day. And it was like such a nice fall-y looking day outside that I shot too much like getting to the shop, that the second half of the video was finally like me at the shop. And I thought, okay, this would probably do way better if I cut out the first minute and a half and just had shop content. But I was like, I like it too much, so I'm gonna post it full.
That sounds very familiar. That process and that thought process sounds really familiar, because that's where I think I did a lot of the learning. And you try something new and then you stick with that as like a motif in your work. Because the video you did, the shop video, was super cozy. I love that, it was raw, kind of not like an ASMR thing, but it was just, the clink of the keys,
Right.
into the ignition, picking a tool up from the chest. Yeah, like that was awesome. And I love that. And I'm glad that it was that length, as, someone who does like more artistic style work. And I also struggle with like, because I have tried to create like a voice or a voicing with the content. It's very serious. It's very, just trying to think of the word. It's kind of sentimental and serious. I do a lot of close-ups and a
Yes.
lot of slow-mo, and that's kind of, you want to capture emotion, capture feelings, because I find that most compelling. If I'm sitting here editing and I'm like, you kind of get a little goosebump. It's like, that's perfect. That's what I'm looking for. And it's funny going back to, that's why I say I watched some of the old videos that I've done, the old max speed videos. They were really cool, and people still tell me, it was just like, dude, those were awesome. But even the earlier ones, but I'm sitting there like, man, there's a lot of like fat that needs to be trimmed, and a lot of, I wish I was capable of zooming in a little bit more. I didn't have a 200 millimeter lens. I had a 3x on cinematic mode.
Right.
And so I'm like, how could that have been more cinematic? I didn't have slow-mo in the toolkit either. Um, but like, yeah, it is. It's building a voicing kind of happens just with experimentation. One shot in particular of you, and I think it was at Tri-Cities for the ARCA event at Tri-Cities. There was one shot I got where I'm standing kind of at your right front tire, shooting in through the window. Zoom in,
Yeah.
120 frames per second, full zoom, and I made the Beautiful Dream video for the kind
One
of
of my
little recap of that
favorites.
race.
Absolutely.
I love that video, and
Yeah.
my favorite shot and at that time, that was my favorite shot I'd ever got, was synced to the music. It's just a blink. You blinked. Your visor was up. You're clearly looking at Chuck or whoever it was that you were talking to, and you just blinked. And that was a natural beat, and you find stuff like that accidentally,
Yes.
and then you carry that with you.
Yeah, and that's oh, there they go again. They're my letting me know that the girlfriend made it home.
Well, good.
So she's home. But no, like you said, those videos I loved. And that's the cool thing, is you can't recreate that. Like, I've tried, when I've watched certain people's content and really liked kind of, and you can pick up certain things, right? But to go out and mimic it to a full is impossible. And so like what I've found with me is, I think a lot of people catch on to this kid that's just doing what he loves and makes it lighthearted and tries to enjoy himself. And when we go out and mix up content, like working with guys like you that bring something a little bit more serious, a little more cinematic to the table, there is a group of people that latch onto that. And then there's a group of people that are like, give me the 30-second clip of the car flying by. There's definitely, groups. So you can't satisfy everyone, and you can't satisfy every creator. Everyone's got their own thing that makes them tick. But
you know what drives me crazy is my most viewed piece of content ever was from Sonoma. It was in the grandstands. I'm on my phone, vertical, not even cinematic mode. I'm in a zoom way beyond what's clear, and it's Truex flipping the starter over and over again to try to get across the start finish line.
so funny.
And I paired it to like the did it, and that got like 10,000 views in like a day. And I've never run numbers like that on anything that I spend a bunch of hours on. I'm like, I really need to start doing more stuff like that. And not be so like nose up snobby about the
Yes.
whole thing, because it's like that does drive engagement and that's fun.
Well, that's
Those
what
kind
goes
of things
back
are
to like
fun.
you don't need the best equipment to make the best
Yes,
content.
absolutely.
Some of the best videos on the internet are like the most grainy.
Oh God, go
But
to
it,
old YouTube and
yeah,
just 15-year-old videos that you always go back to. You're like, man, this has a production, value of $0 and 0 cents,
yeah, no,
and the camera
exactly,
sucks.
exactly. It's probably negative.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
but like when you were saying the video, like the Mark Truex one, literally just this week, okay, trying to fill content holes, like I said, all the video that I've put effort into, like even my like personal edited stuff, I've had a lot of time into it. While it doesn't look super, overkill, it takes time. And from the Lucky Dog race, Karen Jankowski and the Jankowski Motorsports team we were working with, they sent me just some media that somebody captured for them on drone footage and stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
so it was like already pre-edited, all done. And I basically just cut up some clips from like the 10-minute video they sent that had me in it just to put on my pages. And literally 10 minutes of editing worth done, slam it together. Couldn't even find audio that I really loved, but it was just like, I just need to get this out today.
Yes.
And it was
Yeah.
getting late and I was spending too long on it, so I just boom, post. I swear to God, I stepped up from the couch to the kitchen and my girlfriend and I were talking and my phone rings and I look down and I see your reel has 5,000 views. And I open it thinking one of my other ones was like
Yeah.
doing pretty
Yep.
well.
Yep.
And I open it and I'm like, Dolores, can you go to Instagram real quick? And she's like, yeah, why? I'm like, how many views do you think that video I just posted has? And she's like the one that you just posted, like 5. And she humbles my ass real quick. And but I was like, 15,000. And it literally within 5 minutes had 15,000
Wow.
views. And I was like, this irritates me but blows me away in the best way possible because it
Yeah.
makes me realize I don't have to do like all this big, big effort into making content. Sometimes it's just about getting the content out there. And
Yeah. I struggle with that sometimes, where I'm like, you want to put a whole bunch of nuance into a video and things that realistically only I would see. Shit that drives me crazy, and I'm sitting here beating on it for, half an hour in the editor, but like no one's gonna notice this stuff. And
exactly.
it's that's where a lot of the learning comes in when you're making content, is prioritizing your work. It's an efficiency thing, as well as like, not driving yourself crazy when it comes to any kind of creative endeavor, really, but video editing for sure, because it's so technical at the margins, is like, yeah, like I said earlier, being willing to like let go of something, but also
Mm.
not obsess over the tiniest thing. Get the whole thing done, then go back and with the fine tooth comb if you have to, and comb over it that way.
No, hats off to you because you've gone far more into the deep dive than I've been willing to. I've been told it's a rabbit hole, so I'm afraid to.
Yeah.
I've been. I mean, people don't realize the crutches I have between working with guys like you, where you've been able to. I'm really realistically taking advantage of very expensive equipment without having the upfront cost, right? And so it brings my content up to another level for almost nothing. And guys like Anthony, my brother-in-law, he's big into photography, so coincidentally captures a lot of our photos, helps a ton with our graphics and things that I do. So, there's a lot of crutches that I have that a lot of people don't. But for the people that don't out there, I mean, I wish I could. I like almost want to do. I don't feel confident enough to be like, let's do a seminar or like a podcast, like a live. I've seen guys do like live podcasts where they like do marketing lessons. I don't feel like I'm the guy to do that, but at the same time, like I want to do that because I
Don't
think
sell yourself short.
a
You
little.
got a unique perspective.
I just think with a little effort, things could go really far for a lot of guys in the Northwest. And I appreciate seeing somebody like you take that dive because, you've taken it to a whole nother level. And I love seeing the media, with Z93 media coming alive. I love seeing new media outlets come out there and That's the other thing is like when I started, there was only a couple or one photographer. Nobody was doing video. And you had one person, one source, one kind of content you could go to. And the more people that do this, the more competitive it gets, which is nice because it drives the quality up and then the expectations go up and I feel like overall just makes the Northwest better
Yes.
in a broader spectrum. So yeah, no, I'm so happy to see it, and I'm looking over here at my notes because we've already burned through 25 minutes, and I'm having a good time. But the Z93 media with you starting, the new media channel, I gotta ask because I think you've told me before, but I wanted to get it on camera, and I don't remember specifically. Where does the name even come from itself?
I was born in 1993,
Okay,
and
perfect.
my first initial is Z. I went back and forth. You know what's funny was, we started with the max speed thing, and that was the name of the YouTube channel. The channel that I have up right now, it's nearing 200 subscribers, which is very exciting.
Heck yeah.
And it started as my real estate page, and then I was posting those Max videos just to the real estate page, and then it became Max Speed. And I had a conversation with Max about it. I'm like, I want to put this thing under some kind of umbrella. I need to do that. I need to separate,
Mm,
from just that. This is a program under something. Would Max Speed Media work? He's like, no, dude, do your own thing. You can totally you should brand it. My dad was giving me a hard time because he always had a placeholder when he's describing like you need to get a vest and you need to get business cards and he's totally right. And he would just call it as a placeholder, just for Z Media when your Z Media website, blah, 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 blah. And that wound up actually kind of I was bouncing back and forth between names and they all kind of sounded like pretentious or but this one was just simple. It had kind of a bounce to it, a rhythm that I liked, and we've got a designer on Fiverr to make a logo, and I'm like, yep, that's it.
yeah,
That works.
but that's the other thing is like taking a second to shout out Fiverr. I don't think a lot of people
Oh my God,
realize
Fiverr rocks.
and again, like people ask me, how do you get logos made? I don't really know how to design that. And people reach out and all the little things they see out there,
Hmm.
they think it's like this impossible hard thing to do. It's like, no, there's a lot of people out here that do this for you. So same thing, Fiverr with the Eric Junior Racing logos. But to your point, Eric Junior Racing. I mean, it's not that complicated for a name, obviously, but you do need to put it under a brand because I think having a brand, whatever you want to call it, identity, is essential to growing recognition, to growing that kind of like that consistent, or like I was talking about that you have. It gives somebody to kind of a place to, you know, kind of align that with. And then once you obviously get big enough to go out there and sell it, and it's a name that people know, and so I love that you're doing that. I know I wanted to work through things. It's probably not even going to follow those all
Well,
specifically,
that's fine.
but obviously I appreciate all the help you've given me. You've learned a lot, and I know you're just getting started and probably feel like you're not in a spot to give great advice. But I can tell you from a person who is not at the level you're at, I learn a lot every time we've kind of talked about these things, and I watch each one of your videos. For somebody out there who's looking to maybe not say a racer create their own content, but maybe somebody who's a race fan that wants to shoot video or get into that kind of thing at their local track, would you have any tips for somebody as far as camera or maybe just the best way to get your foot into the door or places to watch?
Yeah. Just do it. A lot of where I got influence from was, I'm on YouTube all the time. I don't really, my Spotify numbers at my Wrapped have gone down significantly because I have YouTube going all the time. I've got, I have two monitors and I've got some video up. So it's like finding the inspirations of, what you consume and what you like. You said something earlier, which is like you want to make something that you are enjoying watching as you're making it. And the biggest thing is not to overthink, and it's just get content out, shoot it. It doesn't have to be polished. I look back comparing, what I can do now to what I was doing 2 years ago, and I'm like, wow, it's a world of difference. But you go through and you just do it. And I'm gonna look at, what I'm doing now in 2 years from now and be like, wow, that that was what I wish I would have known then what I know now kind of thing. And if you stick to that kind of pattern and just do it, you will learn with time, and you'll learn whether or not it's for you. I got very lucky because I happened to find this thing that it captivated me, and I have a habit of, I'm a starter, but it's hard for me. I want to start all sorts of different stuff, and I've done that throughout my life, and then you never stick with it all the way through. But this is one of those things for me that wound up being that thing that I could stick with. And so, but you never would have known if, you just keep posting I throw together something on Canva about the race weekend and call it that. It took the risk, put it on YouTube, and just do it. Don't be self-conscious about it. And you don't need good equipment. It doesn't need to be high quality. We were talking about this earlier. You don't need a DSLR camera and, what do you call it? Lens. It's a filter for your lens. I can't remember what the word is now. Polarizing filter for your
Gotcha.
lens. You don't need a fancy microphone. I acquired all those things because it's kind of something that's just for me. I wanted to see how far you could push it. But as far as getting started, which is the hardest part, yeah, just do it. Get your phone out, start recording, play with some different angles. Don't be afraid for something to suck, because you're going to make something that you're going to, you're like, this isn't great, but at least you made it. And it's 1% better next time, and it's 1% better next time, and you add something to the toolkit every single
Well,
time.
and it's 100% better than the content you weren't making. You know what I
Correct.
mean? And so
Correct.
that's the biggest thing is it is content, and a lot of people out there aren't putting content out. So by creating something, you're already like in the top
Yeah.
percentile. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And trust me,
Exactly.
there's gonna be video you hate that you put out there, or content that you put out there. It may not be video, it may be photos, it may be graphics, like you saying. But yeah, there's gonna be stuff you look back on and go, okay, I didn't like that, but you just fix it and move on. And
Yeah.
most people don't remember what they saw on Facebook yesterday, so
Mhm.
like it's gonna be fine. You're gonna survive.
Yeah.
But
No one is thinking as hard about you as you are thinking about yourself.
exactly, that's
And
where I
that
told
is,
you it's that like that
yeah,
narcissistic mindset. You focus on it so much where you're kind of you obsess over it, but that's a passion. I think that's a good
exactly.
thing. It drives people to get better at something, and I think that's only going to be healthy for not only yourself but the community and the Northwest as a whole. So yeah, no, I love that, and I'm glad we got the chance to dive into kind of all sides of it,
Yeah.
but kind of moving into the second half, I want to get to know Zack a little bit better. I want to
Eh.
get to know the guy behind the camera, because obviously we appreciate everything you do with the camera, but we appreciate the guy you are too. You're one of the, I will say right now, not trying to flatter you, but we have, I mean, every person we've brought around when you've been around, as soon as you walk out of the room, the first thing they do is they stop and look at us and go, "Hey, that guy's a really nice dude." And I mean, they people ask all the time, "How did you meet him? Is he a family member? Is that your brother?" Like, people feel the love and support that you have for us just being around for such a short amount of time, and I've never had a bad thing to say about you. I mean, it's
I
it's
appreciate that.
honestly, we can't appreciate all you do enough. But going back to the Zach that I don't know,
Yeah.
where I've never really even asked, are you from the area? Were you
Yeah.
raised out here?
Yep. I
And
was
s
born in Graham. I
Okay.
lived on 10 acres of farmland until I was 10 years old, and then we moved out to Lakewood.
Dang, do you have much memory of being on the farm?
I do. I
Okay.
do. I
So
do. We had
animals and everything, or what?
we had I think at the peak we had 3 horses. We had a potbelly pig named Norman. Uh, I remember him very vaguely. He was ugly as hell. And then we had 3 horses. We had the pig. We had a bunch of dogs, cats, and it was all very free range. That was a lot of fun. I have a lot of distinct memories of that actually. I can
Justice for
still
Norman, man.
I know, yes. And yeah, I think back on it, I still remember the exact layout of the driveway. The funny thing is, I know for a fact that if I were to go back there now, I'd be like, wow, this is way smaller than I remember.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, we grew up there. It was a hell of a way to grow up. I couldn't ask for anything, anything different because I spent a lot of time outside and spent a lot of time um, playing with a stick instead of playing, a video game. You go
Yeah.
outside and you throw a stick around and you're like, that was fun. You know, throw
I
the stick against a tree and it goes thud and you're like, That's a great way to grow up is with
I
simplicity.
think so, and I think it's going away. There's not as
Hmm.
much of that. I don't even know if I've told you, but my first 7 years or so, we lived in Brush Prairie, which is like a small
Hmm.
suburb of Vancouver, Washington,
Yep.
and we ended up moving out to the countryside of the little town I live in now, the center. And when I was like 7 years old, is when we moved out there. So for 5 years or so, we lived on this little farm. And same thing, we had two goats, Milk Dud and Cinnamon. One of them
That's awesome.
laid my mom out one time and gave her a concussion because she was trying to get chicken food out for our like 10 chickens that we had.
Oh, no.
And their favorite thing to do was get into that bin and eat. And she got in a wrestling match with a goat and lost. Um,
Yes.
so we
Goats are
had,
mean, dude. We never
dude,
had goats, but my grandparents did. They're mean.
they're something else. But
They're
it
territorial, is what they are.
I mean, I've been around animals a lot of my life, but there is nothing weirder than letting a goat out of their pen, like, because they're the same thing, kind of free range, and we had this big pasture, and let them out at, like, 7 a.m. before we go to school, and they're this wide, and
Yeah.
then you come back from school, and they're this wide,
Yes.
and they're full, and then the next day they're back to this wide. So it's the weirdest feeling. Um, that was cool. We never had cows or horses or anything. We always wanted them, but I understand why we didn't. Because one, the expense. Two, we were all young kids. My parents did not want anything to do with that. It's just way too much. I'm the youngest of seven, so there's
I was gonna
obviously
say you got a big family. That's a lot to keep track of as it
yeah.
is.
We had like two dogs, two cats, two goats. We had lots of twos. Lots of chickens. We had a rabbit, all sorts of things. But anyways, that's cool. I didn't know that you grew up on a farm. So then, did you got siblings or no?
I have one younger brother. He lives up in Spokane. He's 5 years younger than I am.
Okay. So I mean, did he live out there and have much memory of that either, or do you
He
have much
was
memories with him there?
Yeah, he was 3 when we moved.
Okay.
I was 9. It depends on the. No, he would have been like 4 at that time. I was 9, so he probably doesn't remember a ton. He's probably got very vague memories, but he was little when we moved. It was 2003 that we wound up moving to Lakewood. Um,
What were things like when you moved? Like, did you have a reason for moving or?
I went to a different school,
Okay.
and so I was in the Graham area schools and wound up going to a different school in University Place, which is very far away. They were wanting to move anyway because my dad's family was all in Lakewood. And then I wound up going to school up 10 minutes north of Lakewood and UP, and it was like, it doesn't make sense to be driving 45 minutes to and from to drop me off, and then 45 minutes to and from, to pick me up.
Hmm.
So we did that for like half a year, I remember, and then wound up moving.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And I mean, you've been in the Lakewood area since, yeah. So when you like say high school and all that, what was the first Zack job experience?
Oh my God, what was my first job experience? I think it would have been either the gun store. I worked at a
The
gun
gun store.
store
Okay, that's not what
in
I expected.
I worked at a gun store in Tacoma sometime in college. And I think before that I had a work study thing in college that was I was doing like technical theater, so like carpentry and building sets and shit for the theater at
There it went.
my college.
The battery said no more.
Oh
So
no!
I wonder if it'll let me switch. Yes, it will let me switch my cam on here. So just give me 2 seconds here. Anyway, sorry about that for anyone that was listening. My camera died on me, so technical difficulties, but we're back going. It's not as nice of a camera, apologize in advance, but this is going to have to do for the rest of it. So we can kind of wrap things up here with Zach. So still got about 20 minutes or so. So we'll kind of keep digging in unless you got something you got to get to.
What was I saying? Oh yeah, job experience. Yeah, I worked at
Yeah.
a gun store. I think that was my first ever job.
So you go from gun store to real estate. So I want to I'm trying to bridge the gap here.
There's a few steps in between. I worked at a gun store, did some odd jobs in college on campus, and then after college, I sold advertising at a TV station in Spokane, and I hated every second of that. It's funny, I'm in real estate, but I'm not a salesperson. It is not in my DNA. Uh, find it kind of icky, the sales part of it. Um, Great with negotiating and contracts, but boy, the actual salesmanship of the job is something I struggle with.
I mean, it can be hard. It's definitely not for everyone, and I can only imagine. I mean, so your dad's in real estate as well, correct?
Yeah, they develop commercial real estate. They develop and manage.
Okay.
And so they own a bunch of shopping centers, office retail space primarily.
Okay.
Um, and so that was kind of the first in to, I think, me winding up in the profession I'm in, which I love. I joke about the, not being a big fan of the sales aspect of it, which I do, and I think I do it well, but it's not my favorite part of it. But the real estate in general is kind of in the DNA. Being around, my dad, who was self-employed, they own and manage, and so I got to spend a lot of time around that as a kid. And he was very good about involving me in that process, and taking me to sites when I was little, and walking around vacant shopping centers, and he's talking to tenants, and I'm just sitting there. I'm 4 years old, like looking around. I cut myself with a razor blade once on accident. It
Oh
went up
no.
because I didn't know
Oh
what it
god.
was. So I think my dad probably after that wound up being a little more discerning about letting me walk around a vacant commercial space unattended.
Oh my gosh. A 4-year-old making an L&I claim.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. Well, and it got me right in the soft spot of the thumb too, and I'm just like, oh. But no, it was cool being around that as a kid, and so I think that kind of wound up being in the DNA a little bit, and that's kind of where I
Well, I
wound up.
mean, coincidentally, obviously my folks are in property management and was raised around property management, not so much the real estate side, but they did do enough of that to where I was exposed to it as well. And so it obviously we've both been around it some. So it's piqued my interest enough to want to know how you got into it and what that looked like. And it's cool to hear that your dad had you involved from such a young age, and it's cool to see you going that way. But now, so it sounds like you're kind of standalone, just doing real estate sales separately. Then I'm assuming.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's kind of the main driver. It wound up in that kind of thing because every job that I ever worked, I wasn't good at. I'm not, I'm very fidgety. I don't know if that's coming through on camera as I look around
Man,
a lot, and I'm not good at sitting still.
I don't get me
And
started on that.
oh man, yeah, you and I both have that kind of type A ADHD, like we
Seriously.
have to be moving. And so, I after selling advertising, I worked at a background screening company in a small office, where I met my girlfriend actually now.
Was she
And
working there at the time?
yeah, she still works there. Yeah,
Okay.
she still works there. We met there and
Please tell
had
me
a
she doesn't hate as much as you did.
no, she's
Okay.
see, it's funny how people are so different in some ways because I'm so bad with structure and she's great with structure. She likes it. She likes the hours. She likes the having that kind of
Fantastic.
structure in her life, and I'm like, oh my God, get me out of here. I have to be. I love the fact that like I might get a phone call at 10 p.m. and there's a problem to solve. That's when I'm operating best, which is why I think doing the video stuff it's so unpredictable.
Yeah.
And things kind of happen. You roll with the punches. I kind of like operating in that space.
No, that's fantastic, and I'm sure a lot of people could obviously relate to it. I don't know. I mean, the structure is great, like you said, but I think it's cool seeing the way you've been able to go out and spread your wings and all these dip your feet in all these different things, and I don't know. It's pretty cool to see. So I'm happy to hear it worked out. So you
Yeah.
guys been together how long?
5 years in August.
All right, I'm gonna do her a favor. She's still just a girlfriend.
Yes.
When when is when is that gonna happen? No.
It's this year at some
Okay.
point. I am catching it from everyone. I am
Yeah, I'm
catching
I'm
it from
sure.
everyone. And yes, at some point this year.
I could only imagine. My girlfriend of only a couple of years. Don't even get me started.
Yeah, yeah,
So so I could only imagine.
yeah,
No, but I'm happy to hear that that's everything's I'm assuming going well
yeah.
and you seem
It is.
happy. So,
Yeah, it's been a good couple of years. It does kind of coincide. Business really picked up in the last, which enables me to go out and do stuff like this, which is awesome. And that's what more could you ask for?
well, and I kind of wanted to ask you about you've gone out and in 2 years you've gone from going to South Sound and now you're you're getting the chance to go out and travel to these and do these new things, and it's been fun, and honestly has brought me back in a lot of ways to the mindset I used to have, seeing people like you and my brother Andy who haven't been around this stuff heavily the last couple years come out to the track with us and seeing your raw reactions as race fans before
Yeah,
racer or before photographer, and seeing what you guys actually thought, it put me back into a cool place and it made me appreciate it more.
yeah.
I kind of
It's
wanted to
surreal.
I kind of want to see what you thought, as far as your first experiences going down to like say Sonoma, and then obviously Phoenix was cool during the championship weekend, and then we've had chances with Tri-Cities. So what have been your initial thoughts when you kind of what did you take away? What do you remember the
Yeah.
most?
It's funny how it kind of graduates because, I started going to races with Max at South Sound and I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. And then I started doing, the videos for Max and I'm like, I'm in the infield at State Line, or not at State Line, but at like Tri-Cities or at Hermiston. And I'm like, wow, this is really cool. And you really appreciate, those moments. And then, going back as we grew up very rural, we watched NASCAR when I was little. That's my dad and I watched it together all the time, and we would watch races at Sonoma back when it was Sears Point, and then afterwards when it was Infineon. And to step foot for the first time, I mean, I think the first experience of seeing the track was on that Thursday when we went up to the RV parking to go meet fans.
I love that. That was so much
That
fun.
was so awesome. That was so cool. And man, you were in your element, by the way. You are so good and you're so appreciative and genuine. And that's why, I think people gravitate towards you is because I had never seen that side of you before. It was, going out, slapping skin, talking to fans,
No, I
and
appreciate
really,
it.
yeah, uh, going up that hill and looking over at just the expanse of that track and going, oh my God, there's the hairpin, there's the
Hmm.
S curves. I've seen all of this on TV, and it it it's mind blowing. It's very surreal when you step into a track like that. My dad and I have been to Texas as spectators. We've been in the infield a couple of
Hmm.
times at Texas Motor Speedway, but being there as a participant in a small way, tagging along with you guys, the first time that we walked into the pits the following day,
Hmm.
uh, it it nothing can really prepare you for that. You know what I mean?
Well, it's like to
It,
me the weird thing at first was like knowing where you are without ever being there. That's a hard thing to explain to somebody. And I mean, sure, I'm sure people feel it like. Well, the one thing that actually reminded me of this earlier today is I saw a TikTok of somebody. They're driving through Santa Monica, and it
mhm.
was like the caption was like every guy that's ever played GTA 5 ever, and he was
Yes,
like turn off the maps, babe. I got it from here.
you
You
step
know.
into the uncanny valley,
Yeah,
and
you know right where you are. Never been
yes,
before, but it's home. Anyways, so it's
yeah,
like walking into a place where you've seen it so many times in so many different ways, except with your own eyes. It's a very unnatural way about going about things, but it feels so much bigger of a moment when that finally happens. And it's cool, and it's cool to see. That was my first time seeing that from the other perspective, looking back at somebody and seeing that, kind of that shine in their eyes versus being the one where everyone was kind of looking at me giggling, going, what do you think? What are you laughing at, kid? Because I remember the first races I'd go to with BMR and stuff, or even going to the shop for the first time. They thought it was so dumb that I was pulling up my phone taking pictures of the Napa 16 car. And I'm like, this is the Napa 16 car. Like, I'm sorry. This is what I grew up watching, and going to the tracks and stuff. Like, I was just high on life. So it was really cool to see your thoughts, and it was so genuine. I could just see it in your reactions, your face, and you've been, always so appreciative and grateful, and I almost feel bad because I just, like, you're there to help us, I don't need you to say thank you, but it's been a really cool experience to have somebody who's been of a similar mindset, that kind of that perspective of it's been cool to, like, look over and go, see, isn't it as cool as I've been telling all these guys for years,
right.
And so it's really cool.
For me, I'm a very sentimental guy, and so stuff like that, seeing something on TV and building an attachment to it, like with Sonoma, and then stepping foot, it kind of floors you a little bit, because it reminds me of all the times you'd watch, Mark Martin and Dale Earnhardt Sr. fighting down the S curves for a win, Ricky
Seriously.
Rudd punting what's his name out of the way and then getting DQ'd, like, I remember all those old races, and it's so, same with Phoenix. Phoenix has changed a lot since I was a kid watching it, but it's still Phoenix.
Right.
It's still that iconic view out of the the mountains behind you, and the the city in the distance, and like I said, nothing can really prepare you for that. It is kind of surreal, especially when you're there to work too, where it's like I tried to, like, maintain the wonder and respect the venue. But yeah, when you're like, okay, but I've got work to do at the same time, it's really hard to, like, lock in and be like, okay, no, this is great, this is really cool, I have a job to do.
Right.
you know?
And when that's, like, the cool thing about Phoenix when you were there is giving that second day to just come back as a fan.
Yes.
And and just enjoy it. And obviously you were doing some other things, but, to give you that chance to where there was no pressure. We've already we finished our stuff. Just come out and enjoy. And Sonoma, obviously, there's opportunities for that there, but it's a cool thing. It's cool from in the car, like, that moment driving out on track at Sonoma the first time, or Phoenix, and you're just, this is weird. I've seen it before in iRacing, and
Yeah, I have to ask you about that, because that you must get the shakes a little bit the first time, like, you went out onto Sonoma in a NASCAR sanctioned event. You had to have been nervous. This is like,
it's
it gets
odd.
real.
It's what's weird is the odd part is how normal it feels, because you've seen it so many times from that perspective. Like, that's the part that's not surprising, and obviously it's as badass and cool as you can imagine, but it's what you, going into the weekend, if you had to, like, picture something in your mind, that's the thing you could picture, versus walking over that hill and seeing Sonoma in the distance, and seeing the rolling hills with the S's down below you for the first time. Nobody tells you that's coming. And so it's awesome. The first time I went out to Portland, that one was definitely one of those moments, because it's not in any games. I've seen it from countless perspectives before we ever went NASCAR racing, whether it be through SCCA racing, driver coaching, whatnot. But driving out in that ARCA car for the first time, grabbing gears, looking up, seeing all the fans waving, and, like, actually making out faces that I recognized. It was like the biggest imposter syndrome moment of my life. I thought I should be up there. I thought security is going to come chase me off the track. You know what I mean? Like, it's a weird feeling. And my parents said it was and I'll never forget this too. They said it was, like, the oddest moment when this big, loud V8 rumbling cars driving up at them with the number 19 on the side, and all of a sudden they see their hands come out the window and them waving to mom and dad as I come by. And they said, like, in that moment they realized, like, what the hell did we just get our kid into?
Right.
Because the next lap we come by, we're 3 wide coming down at 150 miles an hour into turn 1. And they're just like, whoa, my God.
Yeah.
My mom, she said she just went and buried her head in the RV. She's I can't watch. So yeah, it was unreal at Portland. Sonoma was a little bit more familiar.
Because you had raced there before, right? In
Yes.
other circuits.
Yeah, so when you're saying like the shakes, my more shake moment at Sonoma was my first ever time going out on track. I was driving a 1963 Studebaker Avante with like all stock suspension, stock motor in a 24 Hours of Lemons race, and I'm sitting there trying to put on my gloves and pulling them on over and over. And my friend Matt Diskanowski, or however I say his name, he's an Australian driver that was here for a little bit and got me into the Lemons racing. He's sitting there and he grabs onto me finally and he's like, "Kid, your gloves aren't getting any tighter. Like, stop. You're going to be fine. Take a deep breath."
Calm down, kid.
Yeah. And I'm just like, I'm fidgeting. I can't stop. And finally you get in and you're rolling out. And I just remember like going up the hill for the first time. And I'm like, you have to drive up the hill. I mean, it's like being in San Francisco. You know what I mean? It's not a small drive up that first corner. And so anyways, you're coming out of pit road and you're throttling up, trying to get up to speed, or at least not like slow down. And, that was one of the more surreal shaking moments. And then when you go there with the NASCAR stuff, obviously when you first get there, it's surreal and you're shaking kind of until you get in the car and then it just lock in, once you're in and strapped in. So that's cool. And then the weird one was, getting in the ARCA car, which I had finally kind of adjusted to, and then rolling out onto a track that I never imagined being at, Tri-Cities. And I'm like, I don't know. It's hard to explain that one because you've seen an ARCA car on iRacing at Sonoma. You've run it at Phoenix, but nothing. Your brain hadn't seen Tri-Cities in an ARCA car before, and you're rolling out like this is kind of home and in a sense, and I'm in a NASCAR car, and anyways, and it luckily like clicked, and we had speed, but that one was honestly. That one was odd. I mean, that was cool, but it wasn't what I, imagined.
Yeah, you could drive like Concord on iRacing, but it's not the same.
No,
It's
not
the
at all.
bankings are different, the lengths are different. Yeah, I love that track too, and that kind of does feel like the home track now.
Yeah,
You
it
know,
does.
and they put on some really amazing events, and it was really cool seeing ARCA there because I had been there since they reopened, so many times with Max, and to see the way that place changed when ARCA came to town, when NASCAR came to town, it was cool because some of the I don't want to say the amenities. This wasn't the amenities that changed, but the structure of the day felt much more rigid, but it still felt like Tri-Cities, and that was really cool about that event. Was like this is familiar, this is comfy, but you're in a much more much more powerful, much heavier car, and they're much louder, and it's
Yeah.
there's some bigger names there.
Well, and it surprised me honestly how close of a feel it was to a late model. I mean, yes, they are heavier. Yes, they have more body roll. Yes, it's more off throttle time, but it's kind of the same rhythm. I don't know. It's hard to describe other than you're just still in a stock car going around the same track. So it was really cool. But that effect that you're talking about, I kind of witnessed that the first time NASCAR came to Portland, and I was there as a fan. Just
For Xfinity and Indy, right?
well, in first, what it was, they didn't even bring the Xfinity series. It was IndyCar was coming back, and the ARCA series was going to be a support series. So for
No
two
kidding.
years, ARCA was the support series to IndyCar, and it was an
Wow.
Indy ARCA combo weekend, or KNN, and there was no Xfinity series there. So I kind of witnessed that small town, even though Portland's obviously a big city, but small track, it wasn't having a lot of, for years, wasn't seen by any large motorsport sanctioned series. And then out of nowhere, we got IndyCar, we got NASCAR, we got ARCA, we got Formula E, all these major series. It's really weird to see a place that you knew on the smaller scale for so long get bannered up and and rebranded as this big NASCAR sanctioned event. That's a odd experience. So the first time seeing that at Portland was really cool to see the way that they could upscale it. And I hear people in the Northwest, like even Terry Bridges, we had him out as a guest for the ARCA race at Portland this year, and I asked him, I said, what did you think? And he goes, I'm gonna be honest, I prefer the short track racing, but this was cool. And I get I think like you can't beat that old school short track racing, but there's this aura that is around an event like that, and that you can see the effort that goes into it. It feels a little bit more, like you said, structured and a little more serious. But at the same time, it's still just the stock car on your little short track, and it's still the same people around.
Yeah.
So it was really cool to kind of clash the two worlds. And my favorite part was seeing guys, that we knew get in the car, and drivers from the Northwest dip their toes into the series, and then you look up and you got like four kids that, including myself, that are from out here, all racing together in a NASCAR series when they come back to return. And Greg Biffle's in the race, by the way.
Yeah.
It was a really, really cool thing. I thought was one of the highlights of the year for us. So I was glad you got to be a part of that. But no, I've had a blast seeing your reactions. I've had a blast getting to know you more, and seeing your content develop. It's going in an incredible direction, and I'm loving seeing the diversity stretching out. You going out and doing things, sports games, and working with the firefighters. So, I hope to see it continue to grow. Is there anything you have on the shoot list, the bucket list, that you want to get out there? And is there anything you want to get a lens on?
I am a big time metalhead,
Okay.
and I love going to metal shows with my brother. I go to Spokane to visit him often, and we go to the Knitting Factory in Spokane, which is very much like the Showbox Soto. And I would love to shoot a concert. I would love to do concert
That's
videography at some point. That's a bucket list, and I think, I don't know how to get there. I've emailed multiple venues, including like the Knitting Factory and the Showbox, and it's all the bands are touring with their own content creators. So, where do you start to build a resume? But that's one that's definitely on the bucket list.
That's awesome.
Oh man, that'd be so fun. That'd be so fun. Front row seat.
What's like your bucket list bands? If you just dream
Man.
putting everything aside as far as how hard it would be. I mean, if you could pick right now, where are you going?
I'm a gigantic Sleep Token fan. I love them. That would be a fun show to see. It's so cinematic and theatrical. The dudes in the costumes. That'd be a fun show to document.
Perfect for filming. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Man, I think there's. I got to see Chris Stapleton at the Spokane Arena,
How's that?
and talk about a show. It felt like the Opry. You know what I mean? It felt like you were in Nashville at the Grand Ole Opry. We were on the floor, and that was just such a stunning show. He's so talented, beyond a lot of the major artists. So that would be a fun show to shoot. One that's a little more subdued and laid back would be a Chris Stapleton show. Anything high energy, fun, cinematic, big lights, light shows, smoke, fire, anything that gives the camera something to focus on, it would be super cool.
That's
Yeah,
cool.
I'd just shoot anything though.
Yeah,
I love going out
wanted
and
to
film
pick
it.
that as like what you were gonna say. So that's a fun one for people to hear. But no, I appreciate your time. We
Yeah,
wrap this
thank you,
up
man.
because we're on an hour. But is there,
Sure.
for the people listening who want to check out your content that haven't seen it before, where can they go? If they want to reach out to you to maybe have you come out and shoot some stuff for a race team or whoever it may be, let them know where to do that.
Z93media.com. Still working on building the website out a little bit. We're more present on YouTube, Z93 Media, Instagram, Z93 Media, Facebook. I think you have to search it because for some reason I don't think we have a novelty URL for that one yet. I was on TikTok for 3 days and then deleted it. Not on Twitter, but you can find all the links at Z93media.com. YouTube is where most of the content goes. And yeah, that's the best way to support, is just to like and subscribe and get get stuff into the algorithm. And just check it out. Take a look at the videos. They're super fun to make. I love when people see them. Um, and that's the best way to support is just get eyes on it.
No, absolutely. And I obviously can't recommend it enough. You've done some great stuff for us. So we
I
appreciate
appreciate it.
it. Is there anyone shout outs or anything that you need to
Hell
do?
yeah. Mom and Dad, you guys rock. You guys have supported me through everything. Peyton over on the other side of the house, super supportive. It's tough for her because, during the summer and, even, we've done a project with the Fire Academy, the Red Knight Recruit Academy with West and East Pierce Fire. And so a lot of the last 3 months have been spent, at the fire station on the training grounds. And during the summer, she loses me for half the summer because I'm in Tri-Cities and then I'm in Wenatchee and da 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 da. And so she's super supportive, and I know that's not easy, but she's the first to like and share everything, and no, she's the best. Um, you guys have opened up so many doors for me that I can't even begin to thank you enough. The Schroeders.
Glad you're able to come out and be part of it. I mean, that's
Yeah,
all I can say. You know what I mean? It's if it's here for us to do. It's easy to bring people around. If people want to be
yeah,
around it, why not? Why not make the family bigger? And so
yeah,
that's the whole point of this. So I appreciate you, and like you said, Max's family. I'm so glad they gave us the chance to
yeah,
meet. I appreciate
yeah.
them. Not
And that's a whole second episode, by the way, because those people
yes.
are the best people on the planet.
No, hands down,
They're
I've
so
loved all
great.
my time with them and appreciate them letting us steal you from time to time. I know you're obviously in tight with them, so we
Yeah,
appreciate
they're good people.
everything. So, anyways, we'll wrap it up. I appreciate you, sir. If anybody wants to check us out on all of our platforms, it's Eric Jr. Racing on Instagram, YouTube. You can look up Eric Johnson Jr. on Facebook. Reach out. Let us know what you thought of this. If it's on YouTube, leave a like, subscribe so you don't miss any episodes. On Spotify, same thing. We appreciate y'all, but until next time, take it easy.